Recording in progress. Okay. Ωραία. Αρχινάω. Πρέπει να βλέπετε ένα whiteboard, έτσι.
Σωστά.
Ωραία. Πολύ ωραία. Ποιος συχάθηκε να βλέπει whiteboard, σηκώνει το χέρι. Μπράβο. Έτσι το θέλει. Okay. Ας πω λίγο καμιά δύο λέξεις για μένα. Oh, I'll switch to English now. So difficult. You have different languages in your head and you switch from left to right, but I'll stick to English for now. So my name is Anastasios Psarros. I was not born in Greece. I was born in Germany, actually. And I've been living for the last 10 years, basically between Germany and Netherlands. My background is I have a major in a master's in information management and international management and a bachelor's in finance. And I've been working now with Scrum for a little bit over 14 years in different roles. I've been a developer, not the best developer in the world, so you need to be self-aware of that. So that was not a long time that I did this. As a product owner and Scrum Master as well. I've been working for 7 years at a consultancy company, so I was a consultant and an agile coach myself. I don't like the term agile coach too much because I don't see a big difference between an agile coach and a Scrum Master in how it's supposed to be, not how we live it, obviously. And currently I'm in Greece, in Thessaloniki, in the northern part of Greece. And came here with my wife and my daughter roughly 5 months ago. So if you want to see who they are, that's them. That's my wife Maya and my daughter Penelope, who now smiles a lot and also cries a lot when she doesn't get what she wants. So that's about me, the boring stuff. Let's go into the real cool stuff, right? And I will start with some quotes here on the top. These are quotes of different surveys that I collected from the last 4 years. And I wanted to focus on these three. So on the top left, you see that over 79% of projects are delayed. So the project plan doesn't come to fruition that much. Surprise, surprise, right? Also, if you look to the right, roughly 12% of projects delivered or meet or exceed the expected value. So if you look at not our project delivered, but our project successfully delivered, only 12% of those are, according to those different surveys that I mentioned. But let's look into products. Products is different, right? Well, if you look into products in the middle, 7 out of 10 products get pulled from market within the first 12 months. That's not a sign of a successful product, I would say, right? So why is this? Obviously, there is a plethora of reasons why this is, right? But one thing I counter over and over again with different companies is a certain mindset that those companies have when it comes to work, when it comes to their products, when it comes to their deliverables, when it comes to whatever you want to call it, right? And we refer to it as a project versus a product mindset. For instance, if you do Scrum, and you are coaches, right? So I'm pretty sure you have heard this sentence before. We tried Scrum, but it didn't work for us. And now we're doing Scrum. That will work better. So whenever I hear this, I make one ching ching in my head, right? I would be a millionaire by now. But whenever I hear this, I usually go into a question of why did it not work, right? Root cause analysis. And then we figure out it has nothing to do with a certain framework. It has to do with a certain mindset and how we work or how we address our work. And Scrum has, for instance, a very distinct product focus. I mean, look at the role, right? The accountability of a product owner is called a product owner. It's not called a project owner. And before the term product owner, the product owner was called a product manager, not a project manager, okay? Also, it doesn't state that Scrum is a project methodology or something like this, right? It's not for project management. It's not stated like this. It's about adding value to solve complex problems. However, if you look at how it's lived, it often goes into this direction. And what I mean by this, I want to clarify now, is that you need a certain mindset in order to help you as a company, whether you do Scrum or not, to, let's say, increase the chance of product success for your services that you have, right? So let's look into these two different things. And I want to start with, basically, I want to do 4 different things. I want to talk about characteristics of projects and products first and foremost, because they get tangled up a lot. And I want to do this so we align, okay? So we all have the same understanding of this. After that, I want to go into success. So what is a successful project? What is a successful product? When do we define these things, right? What are success criteria for a lot of companies out there? Once we align through this, I want to go into, well, bigger differences and smaller differences. It doesn't matter if they're big or small, but they have a huge impact. So differences between these things that we address, but they have a huge difference in terms of, or a huge impact in terms of success for our products and services. And I want to conclude on how we and you as agile coaches, as consultants, right, as companies, as leaders, as managers, you can help the switch from one mindset towards the other mindset and make it, let's say, a little bit easier. Okay? So that is basically what we want to focus on. And I would like to include you. I don't want you to fall asleep because it's, like I said, it's already dark outside, right? So I opened the chat here and we have some people there at the premise. And I would like to start with the characteristics of project versus product, right? So I would like you to name me some characteristics of a project. Either raise your hand and talk or write it into the chat if you're online.
I think from us here, it's better to raise hands, but for the people remotely to write in the chat, right?
Yes. Yes.
Or even unmute and just go with it to be equal.
Also fine.
So, okay.
But speed is our business, so we need to speed up a little bit.
Okay. Joseph?
I would say that project has a specific time frame where it lives. It has a beginning and an end.
Very nice. Yes, I agree.
Alki said the very same in chat. Literally the same. Project has a specific time frame.
It's not only this. Alkis also said something very important. He said it needs to be completed.
Yes.
Yes, that's very important for later on. Very good. Anything else?
Alex also wrote, usually use waterfall framework for the project.
Yes, yes. So often I will write it down differently, often in phase-driven approaches, right? Okay. Anything else?
The team dissolves after the thing, after the end.
Sorry?
The team dissolves after.
Yes, yes. Often temporary teams, right? Good. Also often it is a multiple project environment, right? We have multiple projects. It is tightly connected to this here, right?
In the chat, we also have from Anastasia, product has something to offer or problem to solve, but now we're talking, I think, about projects, so maybe we'll keep it.
Yes, let's switch to products. Let's switch to products. So let's take this, what we wrote down here, right? Beginning and end. What's an end of a product? When is a product ended? Well, it is open-ended, right? We don't plan the end usually. Obviously, there are exceptions from this, but usually we don't plan the end of a project, right? Has a product lifecycle. Obviously, it will end sometime, but that's not the goal, right? Although Alkis wrote down the goal of a project is you need to complete this, right? It needs to end at a certain, right? Good. What else do we have here?
As
It's
Anastasia
sure.
is saying, product has something to offer or problem to solve.
Solves problem, I heard. I don't hear
Yes.
that well. I'm sorry for that. Okay, cool. I will write it also a little bit different. As a goal, right? So the goal of a product is to solve a problem or to add value, right? Okay, cool. Nice. What about teams? Usually we have fixed teams, right? Fixed product team, sorry for that. And usually we don't work, you see it way less with product teams to work in multiple products at the same time, right? Unless they're organized in this. So usually focused environment. Nice. Cool. So we cleared that up a little bit. Let's go to this here. Success defined, okay? And I want to tell you a little story about this. So when I was living in the Netherlands, I was working for a consultancy company, and we had a customer. It was a Dutch-German customer. It's an energy company. I'm not allowed to say words here. It's recorded, right? So this company, they wanted to become agile, and we did an agile transformation for them in the Netherlands. And we helped them with that. And a couple of years later, I was living in Germany again. They called me up and they said, hey, we have a meeting with the German board. So the Dutch board and the German board will come together for an offsite and talk about strategic plans for becoming more agile in Germany. Would you like to join that and give a session for us and help us with that? I said, sure, I can do that. So I went over there on a weekend and made a session of a couple of hours, and we had some discussion afterwards. And in the discussion, a lady from the German board said the following sentence. She said, we need this is great, we will do this, but. And I always remember a but, because a but means everything before the but, you can forget, right? Doesn't matter how nice it is. So she said, but in this company, we have a project success rate of 100%. And I looked at her and was like, wow, 100% success rate. That's awesome. Not a lot of companies have that. And she says, yes, that's great. And we're not allowed to endanger that success rate by doing a transformation. I said, again, very good. May I ask, how do you define a project success for you? And she said the following thing. She said, well, we build our stuff, the stuff that they do, right? And we plan a time frame. And we have a certain budget. I think somebody wrote also budget specific in the chat. I said, great. So the traditional view on project success, right? In time, in scope, in budget. So I asked them the following. Can you imagine a project being delivered in scope, in time, in budget, and you're not successful? So she thought about it, very, very intelligent lady. And she said, no. Now I'm asking all of you, can you give me an example of something that gets delivered on time, on budget, in scope, not successful? Somebody raised their hand in the back.
Yes, George. Everything can be delivered according to a Gantt chart, ahead or on schedule, but the users may not adopt it at all.
Exactly. Very good.
Any value.
Very good. Very good. So I'll make it very simple. We have the greatest app on the planet. We have the greatest traveling app on the planet, but no user is using it. But it was delivered in time, in scope, and within budget. Awesome. Very good. At that, going back to that meeting, somebody from the Dutch side said, hey, wait a minute. This product doesn't sell, this product, no good bottom line, this product, bad. The answer from the Germans was the following. Well, wait a minute. The project was successful. The product afterwards was not successful. And that's how a lot of companies think, right? We create products in projects, then we deliver them to a product manager and say, sell it. And if they don't sell it and market it well, bad product management, right? Funny fact, the projects were done in Germany, the products were done in the Netherlands. So it was a little bit of finger pointing within the company. My answer to them was, with all due respect, I don't think it's a project problem or a product problem. I think it's a company problem, right? And we all know that as coaches and consultants. So going back to this, right? When are these things here, this success, when is this defined usually? Well, we all know, right? Success is defined up front. We create a plan around it. Somebody used the term Gantt chart. We have some Gantt charts accompanying the plan and some milestones accompanying the plan. And the goal is also to hit it, right? So we define the success up front and then we execute on it. Let's go into a successful product. How would you define a successful product?
High rating.
Sorry?
High rating.
You mean customer satisfaction?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a KPI for that. Basically means people like it. Yes. Nice. When do people like it? When do people like a product?
We also have high sales in the chat.
Yes, high sales, very good. So I will say it differently, return on investment, market share, right? From company perspective, right? High market share, profit, margin, cool. Other things, market adoption, yes, for sure. Also customer retention, stuff like this, right? Recurring customers. Awesome. I think a good product, a successful product is very good in adapting with the market, right? So it evolves, which means you need to change, right? So adapts with market. And also, I think from customer perspective, customers usually value or they determine on whether something is good or not on two things, the value I get and the price I pay, right? So I will write it down as bang for buck. Okay, so you think there is a connection between what you're willing to pay and what you get out of it? Obviously there is, right? If I'm getting more out of it, I will be willing to pay more for it. So there is a highly connection between value delivery for companies and the price we can ask, right? We should think about that when we hire product owners. So when do these things on the right, when do they get defined? Also up front? Later on? Usually they get, do we have an idea about what we want to achieve in the beginning? Who would say yes? Raise your hand. Yeah, obviously, right?
And during product life cycle, we have a comment in the chat.
Obviously, very good. During product life cycle. So basically I will write it differently. It's defined continuously. It's defined continuously. So that's a big, big difference also. The first big difference that we see. So basically here we create an idea of what we want to achieve. We create certain points after that. We call it a plan and we execute on it. And the focus is execution and we need to finish it up, as somebody wrote down. Here, we basically need to reassess all the time, right? Reassessing needs different criteria from you as a company, as a team, than just executing. We'll get to that later on. So, very good. So let's go into the differences with a huge impact. So, projects often occur from ideas from within, okay? Within the company, okay? So these things often are inside-out driven. Inside-out driven, I mean the following. This is company. This is market. I gave you an example, right? This is what we do. We have an R&D department. We create these things. We give it to product management. Product management, please sell them. If they don't sell them, obviously we have bad product management, but there might be a gap between here. Okay, you said it yourself. Good product companies, they operate, all of them. They operate the same. They operate outside in. So they start with the market. They seek for problems, they seek for patterns, they seek for something, and then they figure out, what can we do to solve this? That's way different in thinking. And you're in change business, right? I'm asking you, which company with what kind of ideas on how to attack the market is easier to change? Is someone easier to change who starts outside and thinks about what I can do to solve that? Or is somebody easier to change who says, this is what we do, and now we'll try to sell it? It's a rhetorical question, right? Okay, so this is a big thing, right? Inside out thinking, outside in thinking. Also, if we take into account what we discussed until now, it has a big impact, oh, sorry for that. There's a big impact on alignment between people who build something. We call it often delivery of work, right? Or IT department or engineering department, and business. So let's look at traditional projects, right? How would you describe the business involvement during a project? And with business involvement, I mean the business departments within the company, but also what we call market, right? How would you define this? Or how would you describe it? What about the business involvement? If we could create a curve, how would that look like? Time, business involvement. It's usually like this, right? In the beginning, there's high involvement.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Something like a U curve.
Yes, I would say exactly the same. It's like a youth club, right? So in the beginning, it's high involvement. Then something happens. I tell you what this is. This is our statement of work. We sign it with blood. We close it. We say now we can work. All right? And then no involvement. We just give some progress reporting, right? We are on track, we on track, we on track, and we on track. Basically, we execute, we execute, we execute, we execute. And here there's a sign off. Right? And hopefully it will look like this. But most of the times it looks like this. And then the change request comes. And then this happens. Right? So to write it down leads to two things. Exactly what I just explained to you leads to two things. Leads to lower business involvement and more task management. We need to execute. And this is so important that we hire a person whose main job is the execution gets right. We call this person a project manager. And if you're doing Scrum and have this kind of mindset, and there's no project manager anymore, who will take that up? The product owner, right? And we call that person often also a project owner. Have you heard this from companies, calling the product owner a project owner? I think you have, right? Yeah. Yeah. So let's look at the thing on the right side here. If you work outside in, if are your success criteria, if success is defined continuously, if products are open-ended, they are there to solve problems, they're there to add value to the customer, but also add value to the company, right? With fixed teams and focus environment. How does it look like with business involvement? How would the curve here look like? With a successful product.
Flat,
Sorry?
flat, high.
Flat high, yes. Something like this, right? Doesn't matter if it's here or here, it doesn't matter. The point that matters is this. If we work like this, it will lead to higher business involvement and more creativity. Why? How do products usually start? They start with a vision. Based on what you see outside, you create a vision. And then you work around that vision. And working around a vision is not the same as executing a plan. You basically start to look around, how do we solve this problem? And if you ask that question, how do we solve the problem, automatically there's more creativity involved. Okay, and this has a big impact also into how teams view their own work and view themselves. So a typical thing that I see over and over again with companies having that kind of mindset is developers see themselves as people who execute on tickets, and they call their work tickets. They call it tickets or they call it issues. It's those two things. Or tasks. Sometimes they call it tasks, but basically it's those two things. Right? And my job is to execute on a ticket. People here look at themselves more like problem solvers. We're here to solve a problem as a team, okay, and add value to the company. That's way different, okay? So this is a small, maybe not so small, but a difference in terms of involvement that has a huge impact on how we perceive work. Because here, everything is known, right? We just need to execute. Here, we need to learn. We need to learn on how to do that. And we need to also validate if our assumptions about the market are right, because we don't know. So there's also this level of uncertainty that I will come to later on. And because I just glanced at the chat, please don't, I'm talking about mindset here, right? Don't take this as project versus product in a work. I'm trying to get to the mindset. You can do project with a product mindset. You can do product with a project mindset. Look at this. Okay, so there's also a big difference here with huge impact. The last one I want to get into has to do with two words that I hope you're familiar with. If not, please ask, I will explain, which is output-oriented. So usually, if we have more of a project-oriented mindset, everything we discuss are outputs, right? Even if we talk to stakeholders, it's output-oriented. The questions are always like, when will come this, okay? Versus teams and companies that are very good in product mindset, they are more outcome-oriented. And the product mindset expects you to have an outcome orientation, okay? Are the two terms familiar? Are you familiar with those? Or do I need to explain them? I don't see anybody writing to explain, so I would continue.
Yes,
Or
so, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Or maybe that's all if you want to just say a few words, because maybe we have shy people. So
Sure, Sure, no problem. No problem about that. So basically, I will write it down like this. Somebody has an idea in an organization or outside the organization, it doesn't matter, right? We evaluate an idea and we want to make it. Okay? Then we plan work. Planned work consists of two things: inputs we need and activities we need to execute. Okay? This is a plan. Why do we do this? We do this because we want results. Intended results. Intended results consist of two things. They consist of outputs that get out of the work. So for instance, this plastic bottle is an output. The water in itself is an output. The blue color here is an output, okay? The important thing, or the funny thing about this is that the blue color is an output that serves as an input for a different product, okay? Which is the bottle. They glue it on top of that, okay? So this is an output. But what happens with this? Now we go into the domain of outcomes, okay? The outcome here is every time I'm sitting in front of the PC, I'm not taking tap water anymore. I'm taking one of those cute little bottles and drinking them. And I'm feeling refreshed. And the company that sells them, Zavodi, is making money out of it. These are values I get and impacts for the company, which in return with some service they do or whatever, I'm going to text them, hey, this sounds great, this is great, this tastes super fresh, whatever, leads to updated ideas for new products or enhancement of the product, right? So output orientation, let's make it in red. Output orientation is here. Outcome orientation usually is here. What's easier to execute upon is outputs, because my customer will tell me what they want. The problem is no customer really knows what they want. That's the bad thing. What's way more difficult is talk to customers about outcomes, because then I have to think about what do I need to deliver so they get that outcome. But the good thing is the customer really knows the outcome that they seek. They're really good in this. Okay, so these companies on the right, they are way more familiar in talking about outcomes with their customers, getting feedback on outcomes, not on output so much, okay? And then seeing what output will lead to that outcome, versus on the left, they only talk about outputs, okay? And you can see it. You can see it with companies that do agile way of work, but they have this type of mindset, okay? And this will lead to some dangerous things that I will show you in a second. So I think that should be clear by now then, okay? Or any more questions about it? Cool.
Thanks for the examples.
Sure, sure. So I want to show you two things that you're familiar with, which is the last big difference. Let me take that here. I love technology. That's an outcome. I don't need to scrabble around too much. Who of you has heard of the iron triangle of software development or iron triangle of project management? Raise your hands if you have done so. Okay, awesome, great. So a lot of people know that. So it's basically a very simple idea. It's basically an idea that talks about the three things here: scope, time, and budget, right? I'm in Europe. I should do this. Okay. So, and it basically talks about two things. Number one, the quality of a product or your work. Let's talk about work. The quality of your work heavily depends on these three factors, right? Which sounds totally logic. I mean, if I have a lot of stuff to do, don't have a lot of time, don't have a lot of budget, you cannot expect high quality, right? The second thing it says is you cannot fix all three aspects. That's impossible. But wait a minute, don't we fix them in a plan? Yeah, but we have a backdoor. Because we don't. We really don't fix them, although we fix them in a plan. Traditionally speaking, especially with phase-driven approaches, this is fixed. These two are variables. And think about it. What's the first thing companies usually do and teams usually do when we run out of scope or behind the plan? Increasing this. They don't call it money. They call it resources. They call it people. They call it teams. Can we add? Do we have some capacity left? Which is all this. There's nothing more. What happens with a project if it's not done, if it's not finished until the deadline? It gets postponed. That's this. Very rarely do we adjust scope. It happens. But remember, I'm talking about mindset. Most projects, it doesn't happen because it's set in stone. We need to deliver this. And if you ask people, why do you need to deliver this? What's the typical answer? Somebody ordered it. That's here. Let's look at how it looks on the right. And I'm pretty sure you've seen this. It's flipped. So we have scope here. We have time here. We have, euros here. And what's fixed is basically this, and this is variable. Usually you have stable teams, you said it. So you have stable budget. That's your project budget, product budget, month for month for month for month. You have usually certain points where you release, whether this is once a month, once a year, every quarter, it doesn't matter, right? You have certain points where you deliver. The question is what will get in there. And this is not fixed from the start because, well, we are outcome oriented. We change it. Our ideas of what is needed right now might change. And also we do rescoping way more. Okay. Obviously the thing with the quality is the same, right? Depends on the things. Now, if you look at some agile way of working, right? Let's take Scrum, for example. Scrum doesn't work well with that type of triangle. It will bring you some problems. It works way better with this type of triangle. Why? Because where do we fix budget, let's say, in Scrum? Or where do we fix time in Scrum? We have sprints, right? It's a fixed amount of time. You don't delay sprints. You don't postpone sprints. The question is, what can we deliver within that time frame? We fix budget in Scrum. How do we fix budget in Scrum? We have a team. We have a certain time period. This team has a certain cost per time. So it's fixed. And we have variable scope in Scrum. Where can we find variable scope in Scrum? Well, first and foremost, we have a product backlog. Product backlog is variable, right? Things can go in, things can go out, things can go high, things can go low in order, right? That's called variable product backlog. The idea of a variable product backlog with people on the left side and organizations on the left side is this. It's variable. We can always add stuff. Talk to those people about taking stuff out. No, we cannot do that. Somebody ordered it. We have to deliver it, right? What about the sprint? Is a sprint fixed or is a sprint variable? What about scope and sprint? Is it fixed or variable? Quick poll. Who says fixed? Who says variable? See, we're not sure, right? What if I tell you that a scope in a sprint is variable? You can take stuff out of a sprint every time, anytime you want. You can add stuff in a sprint anytime you want. To a certain degree, obviously. And that certain degree is obviously the sprint goal, right? Everything that covers the sprint goal that is needed for the sprint goal, and without it, the sprint goal is endangered, cannot go out, obviously. So can you imagine if they have sprint goals, how a sprint goal looks here? I can tell you. Cover everything that is in the sprint backlog. Basically, output-oriented sprint goal. Outcome-oriented sprint goals here. Like, for instance, enable our customers to book a travel on our website. It doesn't tell you how to book it, which travels to book. So it's very, let's say, vague, right? Also, it doesn't have to cover all the scope. That's a misconception about Scrum and the sprint backlog. That a sprint goal has to cover all the scope. It does not. It needs to cover at least one product backlog item. That's what we teach. Sorry, I did not say that. I'm a professional Scrum trainer for Scrum.org as well. And that's what we teach the people. One, at least, not all. Okay, it takes away flexibility. And flexibility is something we pursue with agility. But if I already have that type of mindset, this is automatically what I think, because that's what I've known all the time. Okay, so variable scope works better with Scrum. But if I fix it, it works less. Your flexibility goes away. And then you will need to talk to people who say, we tried Scrum, it didn't work for us. It didn't help us with the flexibility we need. We'll do Scrum Bundle. Okay. So these are big differences. Okay. And also in terms of stakeholders, you're talking to stakeholders about, I assume, about changes in organization, right? Stakeholders here on the left side, if our environment ticks like the red here, they will say certain things like, for instance, when will it be done? When is it finished? Who is a consultant here? Works for a consultancy company. Okay, Charis, how often have you heard the question, the transformation, how expensive is it and how long will it take?
Always.
Always.
Continuously, like it's defined continuously.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? So this is a typical thing that also Scrum teams get. Are we on track? These are typical questions, right? If you look at Scrum teams who have this mindset, what they show, for instance, in the review is always, not always, obviously, but often it's not even done. Done to a degree that is usable and potentially releasable, right? Because that's what we aim for. What is done is basically their tickets are done that they did in the backend. This does not equal a releasable and usable increment. Okay, but that's our understanding of it. And we might be on track with our plan, but the success might not be there. Okay. So to conclude this first three things, we want that first and foremost teams, but also companies adapt more of a product mindset in these times, because times are uncertain. We don't know what will happen. Okay, so you cannot plan for uncertainty. That's not possible. We all know that. So we need to also adjust our mindset towards our work according to that, because it doesn't matter if we know it or not. If our whole way of addressing our work is different, it will not lead to success that easily. Okay, not that the mindset alone will change everything, obviously, but the mindset is a big thing. So, but how do I get there? Let me erase this for now, because it's getting recorded. Okay, so how do we get from project mindset to product mindset? Okay, you're in the change business. You obviously have ideas how to get there. However, I will name 4 things, maybe 5, which might help you to better, let's say, establish this kind of mindset, okay? Or to use these 5 things as a catalyst for those change. Number 1, obviously, I'll call it A. Something I'm pretty sure you tell your companies, your clients all the time. Strive for stable teams, dedicated teams. Obviously, there are different reasons to strive for stable teams. In terms of this here, what we want to achieve, success of products, right? That's what we talk about right here. We strive for stable teams because we want to increase the interest and curiosity about solving problems, right? And we all know that an interest of individuals is raised if there is continuity. If we just do something once or for a short time, we're not that invested in that, right? So stable teams, knowing that you work for something for the next couple of years, will help you increase your level of interest in what you do, because you know that it's not just for 2 months and then something else will come. Also, another aspect of stable teams for what we talk about here is ownership and the ability to derive goals from a strategy that they have to listen to, they have to align to, because they're accountable for delivering that value. Okay, so you need some type of strategy on how to get there. You need some type of vision on what you want to achieve, and then you can derive goals from that, which helps you obviously also with self-managing teams. Productivity. You want people to be productive? Let them be focused and dedicated, right? We all know that 20% productivity gets lost out of just on average, right? Just on multiple project management, or product management could also be. And the last thing I always say is, if you look at organizations, now I'm making it a little bit black and white. I know there might be organizations who are really good in this, but in my experience, this is a big issue. Might be different for you. Organizations who have that red type of mindset, okay, who actually plan the work around what we just discussed. If you look at those teams, they're way easier to create technical debt because they have to deliver until that point. So it's way easier for them, or let's say more sexy for them, to take those shortcuts, okay? We all know the workarounds, the word workaround, okay? So it's way easier for them to do a workaround. If you're dedicated to this and you know you are the people who have to clean up the shit that you do, excuse my French, you're not that likely to take the shortcut, okay? Whereas the other idea where you say, well, my job is to finish this. What happens after this goes into the product line. They have to deal with it. It's not my problem anymore because I have something else waiting for me, okay? So that's number one, strive for stable teams, or A. B, if you want this change to not just be in a team, establishing it in a team is not that difficult, but it will hit a ceiling if outside there is no change, right? You need to work with the environment on welcoming change and adaptation. What I mean by this is the following. I have a saying that I say always to people who I work with. You need to find comfort in being uncomfortable. So what I mean by this is that the complete chain of command that is with this product that we work on needs to embrace the things that we discussed. They need to embrace, for instance, value delivery over short-term benefit thinking. Oh, but we need to sell it now because then we will make 10,000 more. Yes, those 10,000 more will not benefit you in the long run, right? So it's the same as saying a product owner must maximize value, not maximize profit. These are not the same things. Maximize profit is very easy. You just need to cut short costs. That's it. I cut costs, I maximize profit. But it's a very short-term thinking, right? Maximizing the value that gets delivered is way longer and it's more stable. Okay, and the data shows this as well. So that's another thing, right? Welcoming this change. Adaptation. You need to look at the long-term goal. If something doesn't come as planned, which will happen in a VUCA world, right? Some things are uncertain. We don't know what will happen next year. We don't know where we'll be in 3 years, okay? So if something doesn't come as planned, go away. They need to go away from thinking it or taking this problem as a delay. Oh, we have a problem. There's a blocker. This is a delay of the plan. No, a blocker is an opportunity to adjust. So a blocker is always there because it points to something. We can take that and adjust, okay? And then we can learn something from that. So this will help them ease up more for that, what I called find comfort in being uncomfortable. C. What I showed you here with the triangles. Not fixing time and scope. Obviously, fixing time is not a bad thing. I deal with agile teams and Scrum teams who say, no, we don't want a time frame because then we're agile, we don't know what will happen. What they actually talk about is this. We don't want fixing time and scope. Fixing time is good because it gives focus. You know, until then, we need to deliver. The question is, what do we need to deliver and what will give us the biggest return on investment, right? But fixing time and scope in a plan, eventually long-term plan, is not that good, right? So they need to get away from fixing time and scope to having a fixed time schedule where scope might change. You still could talk about scoping, but more, let's say, theme oriented. Okay, so try to talk and look at time and scope as outcome output. So for instance, instead of what output do we want to deliver at that time, think about this. What's the outcome we want to deliver? And then you have flexibility in the output. Also, the teams, because that's environment, right? The teams need to learn that transparency also outside the Scrum team is important for this. So if you explain to managers, the teams explain to managers, for instance, that a delay is because of strategic change and not because of laziness or people not doing a good job, is also something that plays into this. So don't fix time and scope in output, try to make it more outcome oriented. D. Don't fall, I would say like this, don't fall too much in love with ideas. Or I could say it as Mike Tyson once said, every idea is great until you get punched in the face. So a product-oriented mindset wants or expects us to keep the door open for alternatives at all times throughout what we call product lifecycle, right? You look for alternatives. It's not set in stone. So if you want to do this, you also need to go away from what a lot of companies have with the red one. From, for instance, have you heard that question before? Whose fault was that? Something goes wrong. Whose fault was that? Who has heard that before? Raise your hand. Okay. We need to go away from that. It doesn't matter whose fault it was, right? Obviously, we need to fix things and we need to know who is able to fix things, right? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't give us added benefit of knowing whose fault it was. We should switch that question towards something like, what's the best thing to do now? These are totally two different questions. One is inside focused. The other is outside focused. So a product-oriented mindset should try to have an outside-focused look at those things. So this is what happened. This is not right. What is needed now? Okay, it's a way different thing. And I want to stop with the last one maybe, which is we have all types of tools, all types of information radiators, right? However, the information radiators should match the mindset. What I mean by this is you're dealing with teams, right? Agile teams. And you're dealing with product managers and product owners and that type of stuff. I don't know your specifics, but if it's quite close to what I've experienced, then a lot of them don't really work with something like a roadmap, for instance. Okay? It's just something that maybe gets handed to them that is somewhere on SharePoint or Confluence, somewhere there hidden. They know where it is maybe, but it's more like something was done because it had to be done. And if they have it, and you look at those roadmaps, it's basically very detailed. So basically it says, for instance, this will come then, this will come then, this will come then, this will come then, this will come then. If you use something like this and you want to make a switch towards a product-oriented mindset, your information, for instance, your roadmap needs to adjust. So you can use something like a goal-oriented mindset, goal-oriented roadmap, like a theme-oriented roadmap. Are you familiar with those things? Have you seen those before? So basically, a goal-oriented roadmap looks like this. I can show you. It's one of my favorite that I used when I was a product owner. Basically, it looks like this. So here it has a name and date or something familiar. You can call it silver, gold, platinum, and diamond. Okay. And it can have, I'll just make it easy, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Okay. Then it has a goal or a theme if you want. It's also a theme orientation, but this is the goal orientation. Here's a goal you want to achieve, the goal you want to achieve, the goal you want to achieve. Here, you can leave it empty, or you can write down a goal that you want to achieve. This can derive from yearly goals, for instance. Okay. This can also act as a product goal for the team to plan the sprints and the sprint goals for that. Here you can have some key themes or epics if you want that play into this. 2 here, 2 here, 3 here. This is not done yet. Based on what we will learn here, we will do this, okay? And here you have some KPIs that are value-oriented, not productivity-oriented, because the productivity of a team or velocity of a team doesn't say anything about success, right? And you can have here some KPIs. So this is, for instance, a very simple roadmap that you can add to what you have that will help more with the switch to get over here, because it doesn't matter if we preach it, but if our, let's say, plans and roadmaps look exactly the difference, okay? So looking at the time, we started 1 hour ago and 2 minutes. So I crossed the time box for 2 minutes. I'm sorry for that. So, but this is what I wanted to talk about a little bit, to hopefully show you something new. And or if you heard about it, to talk a little bit more about it. So that's the difference between a project-oriented mindset and a product-oriented mindset. Thank you. I think we have 12 minutes left, right?
Yes, I mean, we can stay as much as we like, I suppose. Well, not that much, but maybe it's time to have some Q&A.
Sure, go ahead. How do we want to do that? Some people write in the chat, somebody will read them, or?
Maybe people can raise hands, or we can grab questions from here, around.
Sure.
So don't be shy. Yes, it is.
You can also ask them in Greek, yeah?
Have George, or we can stop the recording for now, I think, right? And then we can